No, can you be a little bit more specific because the question is very broad.
Broad in the sense, any factors, and say suppose if you're deciding on a long-term scheme.
Okay, long-term incentive schemes.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you're talking about a long-term scheme,
yeah.
What are the factors which you generally look at, and how do you come out with that?
Okay, that's a good question. So, so normally in a compensation system, you have an annual payout, which is your bonus or end of the year kind of payment. And apart from that, for a select group of the organization, which you call the must retain or your key guys, mostly it's in the senior team, you sometimes go for what is known as the long-term compensation. The objective of any long-term compensation is to retain your a certain group of people with something which your normal annual salary or variable pay will not be able to hold them back. So there has to be something, a big pot of money or something at the end of a timeline. So some kind of a backloading kind of system is built into it. Now, how do you create a long-term incentive program? So it depends on the stage with the organization in. Like in our organization, we can tell, we have different types of businesses. There are businesses which are in the kind of an incubation mode. They are still receiving support from the corporate in terms of their funding. They are not free cash flow positive. Then you have businesses who are in the mature mode, which is generating revenues and self-sufficient and supporting the organization. And then there is a businesses who are in the harvest mode, which currently doing well, but maybe 5 years or 10 years down the line, they will be existing in a different form, right? So depending on the business, you need to define the levers. For example, if you have businesses in the incubation mode, you have to look at parameters like acceleration to profitability, generation of a free cash flow. So this you can build it into the parameters. Businesses which are mature, you have to look at the return on capital employed or return on investment or the margins, because you are trying to get it back on that. And the businesses which are you're in a harvest mode, you find out whether either you can go for margins or you go for simple things like maintaining the top line or the bottom line. So there can be a more of a bottom line focus for those businesses. So depending on what is you are focusing on, what sector of the business, you have to design the variable pay plan, the long-term incentive plan. Any long-term is in today's world. So your long-term bonus cannot be more than 3 to 4 years. Anything if you tell that, for example, we have a long-term bonus scheme and we try to always attract people from other industry where this long-term bonus is not there. For example, if I'm hiring from an ex-company and they say that my everything is cash and I am saying that you will get a pot of money at the end of the 5 years. So that fellow will not have much faith in me. I don't know what, I'm going to be there in your company for 5 years, what is going to happen to me, how my career is going to shape up, a lot of questions are there. So, so the long-term, I think to my mind it's around 3 to 4 years kind of thing. Beyond that, if you try to define in today's world, it becomes very artificial, right? That is one. Second is you have to have a certain amount of loading and staggering. So that means if it is a, say, let's say, a 4-year program, and I have been designing such programs in Wipro and now in Dr. Reddy's. We had one, I have designed for one CEO compensation when he had designed. So we had made the compensation like it will be 0, 0, 40, 0, 60. That means on 3rd year, if you stay, you get 40% of the amount. If you survive for 5th year, for the entire term of a CEO, which nowadays is very difficult, you will end up getting some few crores. But then you have to survive for the 5 year. So that's a CEO compensation. Now the same model will not work for an executive. If you get a middle-level executive and you say that this kind of model I am giving, so they will not bite the bullet. So in that case, you have to have a much more graded system. So maybe you have a 20, 20, 40 or something like that you have to develop. So depending on the level and the kind of industry you have to develop the backloading of the scheme.